Hey everyone, and welcome back to Book Dive. You know how we do it here, a quick hit of knowledge and insights to get your day going. And today we're diving into something pretty intense, Can't Hurt Me, by David Goggins. I think you mentioned you're kind of into self-help stuff, but he's like next level.
Yeah, he's definitely in a league of his own.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we're going straight to the source for this one. We've got excerpts from the book itself. We're going to unpack his story and really try to get at the lessons he's learned. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in. I mean, his story is one that really hooks you from the start. We're talking about a guy who faced so much adversity, like starting with a really brutal childhood and then pushing through like the most extreme demands of a military career. I mean, Goggins's whole life is about pushing limits, exceeding boundaries that most of us wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid of a challenge. So in this deep dive, I guess our mission is to figure out what makes this guy tick. Like, what are the core principles he's trying to share? And how can we maybe apply those principles in our own lives, even if, our goals aren't quite as uh, extreme as running 100 miles through Death Valley or something like that.
Right, exactly. And it all starts with this really powerful contrast. Like Goggins describes his childhood home, it's on Paradise Road, and he paints this picture, a two-story white wooden house, like classic Americana. He even had like a Rolls Royce and a Corvette in the garage.
Wow, so you'd think this kid had it made, right?
Right, you'd think so. But that's where Goggins kind of pulls the rug out from under us. He reveals that this seemingly perfect home was actually a living hell because of his abusive father.
Oh, wow. So it's that classic thing of not judging a book by its cover. Paradise Road. Doesn't sound so paradisiacal now.
Right, it's like this instant setup for the whole book. It's like appearances can be deceiving, and hardship can exist even in the most unexpected places.
Totally. And this whole theme of hidden hardship continues when Goggins talks about his family's business. They owned a roller rink called Skateland. And, you think roller rink, fun, freedom, good times. But for Goggins, it becomes another arena for forced labor and abuse.
Yeah, it's really dark.
He's describing, organizing skates, spraying deodorizers, endlessly polishing the floor. Just this constant grind, even as a little kid.
It's like you can almost smell that stale air freshener and hear the muffled roller disco music. But underneath it all, there's this oppressive atmosphere.
Yeah, it's heavy. And, for anyone listening who's ever been in a situation where they had to put on a brave face while they were struggling internally, this part really hits home.
Absolutely. It shows that suffering can exist anywhere, even in places that are supposed to be about fun and recreation.
Right. And then there's this moment of hope. Goggins and his brother, they finally escape their abusive father. They go with their mom to live with their grandparents in Indiana. They even spend some time in a Holiday Inn conference room.
Yeah.
Which, kind of shows how unstable their situation was at that point.
Yeah, it's a small detail, but it really adds a human touch to the story. It reminds us that even someone like Goggins, who seems almost superhuman at times, has experienced moments of vulnerability.
Absolutely. And speaking of moments, before we go any further, quick reminder to hit that like and subscribe button if you're enjoying this deep dive. We really appreciate your support.
Yes, please do.
So Goggins escapes his father, but obviously his struggles aren't over. His teenage years are just a mess. Academic difficulties, racial prejudice, the tragic loss of his stepfather.
It's a lot for anyone to deal with.
And this is where we start to see the seeds of Goggins' self-help philosophy taking root.
Yeah, this is where things get interesting.
He starts doing this ritual. He calls it the accountability mirror.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Picture him like standing naked in front of a mirror, brutally honest with himself, confronting all his weaknesses and past failures head on.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. It's such a raw image.
Yeah.
But it really gets to the core of his approach. It's about radical self-awareness, acknowledging your flaws without any sugarcoating.
Right, it's not about beating yourself up. It's about taking ownership and creating change.
Exactly.
That's got to be the first step in any transformation, right? You have to know where you are before you can figure out where you're going.
And the accountability mirror is Goggins' way of forcing himself to do just that. No excuses.
Yeah, no kidding. And this whole idea of self-improvement really takes center stage when Goggins joins the military, specifically when he decides to go through BUDS. You know, that insanely tough training program for Navy SEALs?
Okay, so this is where things go from intense to, almost unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Kicks us right into the heart of it all. Describing Hell Week, that's the most brutal part of BUDS.
Yeah.
And he describes it in such vivid detail, like freezing cold Pacific Ocean sleep deprivation, so bad you're hallucinating constant physical challenges that are just designed to break you.
It's wild. It really shows you what the human mind and body can endure.
But for Goggins, it's not about being a masochist or anything.
Not at all.
He's not just trying to see how much pain he can handle. He's using these extreme experiences to build mental toughness,
Wow.
to like really discover how much potential he has.
Right. It's like he's pushing himself to the absolute limit to see what he's truly capable of.
And for anyone listening who's into that whole mind over matter concept, this is where it could stick into a whole new level.
Totally.
Goggins is basically saying that we put limits on ourselves, limits that are way below what we could actually achieve.
Exactly. He has this thing called the 40% rule. He believes that when most people think they've hit their limit, they've actually only used about 40% of their true capacity.
Whoa, so there's like another 60% just waiting to be unlocked?
Exactly.
But how do we actually do that?
Well, Goggins has some really practical advice here. He talks about reframing your internal dialogue, like shifting from a focus on the pain and discomfort to a focus on the challenge itself, the opportunity for growth.
So like turning that negative self-talk into fuel.
Right.
Instead of thinking, I can't take this anymore, you start thinking, this is making me stronger.
Yeah.
So it's about perspective. Seeing struggle as a chance to become more resilient.
Yeah, and Goggins doesn't just leave it at that. He gives concrete examples, like using affirmations, visualizing success, breaking down big goals into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay, so it's like a system for building mental toughness.
Right.
And even though most of us aren't planning on going through SEAL training, these principles can be applied to anything. Right.
Absolutely.
Whether it's pushing through a tough workout, tackling a challenging project at work, dealing with a difficult personal situation.
It's all about cultivating that inner strength so you can face any obstacle that comes your way.
No matter how big or small.
Right.
And it's not just about enduring hardship. Goggins takes it a step further.
How so?
He doesn't stop at becoming a SEAL. He keeps pushing, exceeding expectations. He volunteers for Ranger School, even though people are telling him not to. He's always going above and beyond.
He's relentless.
And then he starts competing in ultramarathons, which is just insane.
Yeah, that's a whole other level.
But for Goggins, it's not just about the physical challenge.
He's about pushing his mind even further.
He focuses on this race called the Badwater 135. It's a 135-mile race through Death Valley in the middle of summer.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about an impossible task.
I know, right?
And he talks about all of it. The meticulous preparation, the physical breakdowns, the sheer mental fortitude it takes to keep going when your body is screaming at you to stop.
It's mind-blowing.
And this is where Goggins' message starts to connect with us on a deeper level.
In what way?
He's asking us, how can we apply this mindset to our own goals?
Right.
Even if those goals don't involve running across a scorching desert.
It's about tapping into that mental grit.
That unwavering determination to push through obstacles and achieve something you didn't think was possible.
Exactly.
So what are some of the key takeaways here?
Well, Goggins talks a lot about self-accountability.
Yeah.
Setting challenging goals that push you outside your comfort zone, and visualizing success as a way to mentally prepare for the challenges ahead.
It's all those classic self-help themes. But Goggins brings this raw authenticity and intensity to it.
That's what makes it so powerful.
It's not just about thinking positive thoughts. It's about actively working towards those goals, embracing the struggle, and constantly pushing yourself to be better.
And all this ties into one of Goggins' most powerful tools, the cookie jar.
The cookie jar.
Yeah, it's a metaphor he uses to describe like a mental reservoir of past experiences, both triumphs and failures, that you can draw upon when you're facing a new challenge.
Oh, I like that. So it's like building up a mental storehouse of evidence that you can overcome adversity.
Exactly.
But how do you actually build this cookie jar?
It's more than just remembering. It's about really reflecting on those experiences. Like, Goggins encourages us to dissect those moments when we push through, when we achieve something we didn't think we could, even those times when we fell short but learned valuable lessons.
So it's like journaling, but with a focus on building resilience.
Exactly. You're creating a collection of proof points
Mhm.
that you're tougher than you think.
You've got the receipts.
Right.
And then when those negative thoughts creep in, you can pull out a cookie and be like, wait a minute, I've been through worse and come out stronger.
Exactly. It's like a secret weapon against self-doubt.
I love it.
And that ties into another one of Goggins' principles, taking souls.
Caking souls.
Yeah, I know it sounds a bit aggressive, but it's really a metaphor for that drive to outwork your opponents, whether those opponents are other people or your own internal demons.
So it's about channeling that inner competitor.
Right, that fire to prove the doubters wrong. and to overcome those limiting beliefs we put on ourselves.
Goggins talks about using negativity as fuel.
Yeah, he says instead of letting it drag you down, you use it to push yourself harder.
Like in SEAL training, he was always trying to outperform the other trainees.
Even in the toughest tasks.
It's that whole Rocky mentality.
Exactly. Take the hits and come back swinging even harder.
And even though most of us aren't training to be Navy SEALs, we can still apply that taking souls mindset. It's about pushing beyond what you thought was possible,
Refusing to be limited by expectations.
whether they're coming from others or from yourself.
Right.
And I think this is where Goggins' message goes beyond your typical self-help stuff.
How so?
It's not just about feeling good, it's about pushing through discomfort, embracing challenges, and proving to yourself that you're capable of so much more than you thought.
He doesn't sugarcoat it, though.
No, he
It's
doesn't.
very clear that it's going to be hard. It's going to require sacrifice and discipline.
But the rewards are worth it.
Definitely.
And Goggins also gets real about mental health.
Oh, yeah.
He talks about his own struggles with depression and suicidal thoughts, which is something you don't often hear in books about pushing limits.
It's refreshing.
It makes his message so much more relatable.
He's basically saying even someone who seems superhuman like him goes through dark times. And it's okay to ask for help,
He even talks about therapy and medication,
which can be so stigmatized.
especially in a culture that emphasizes toughness.
It's a good reminder that taking care of your mental health is just as important as pushing yourself physically and mentally.
And at the end of the day, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from Can't Hurt Me. It's about discovering your full potential.
Not just in terms of achievements, but also in terms of resilience, self-awareness, taking care of your whole being.
It's a powerful message.
And it resonates even if you're not planning on running ultramarathons or going through SEAL training.
So for our listeners who are ready to dive deeper into Goggins' world, you can find a link to purchase Can't Hurt Me in the description below. It's definitely a challenging read, but super rewarding.
Yeah, you'll get a lot out of it.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you most from this deep dive? What are some of your own cookie jar moments? Drop a comment below, and let's keep this conversation going.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to Book Dive for more deep dives into the books that are shaping our world.
And ourselves.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing those limits.